Hey everybody, it's Emily at ARG Schooling, and today let's talk about my most disappointing reads of 2023. So I don't normally do this. I don't always like talking about the books I didn't enjoy. I much prefer to gush about the things that I loved, but I know that it's also helpful to share the things that I didn't enjoy and like give my reasonings and whatnot. So I went and reflected on my books I've read so far this year, and I did have several that ended up being just disappointing. So I thought, let's talk about it. Let's do the thing. The first book I want to talk about is The Boy Who Followed His Father into Auschwitz by Jerry Dronfield. This was the Young Readers edition, I want to say. I got the arc of it to read way back at the beginning of the year, and I didn't like it. I didn't think it was very well written. I kind of almost want to go back and read the original to see if maybe that was a much better version of the story. But I found this to be written, because it's a Young Readers edition, it was written in very, talking down to you language. I don't think it explained things very well. I felt the story didn't flow like it should have, and it made me really frustrated because this is a true story. It is a story that actually, these are real people, real events, and it felt not great reading it. I don't think the author did the people he was writing about justice with the way this was written, which is just unfortunate because the concept, what he was working with, was an interesting story had it been done better. So I don't recommend this. If you're going to read a book about this time period, there are better books than this one. So, but this is just my opinion. I don't know. I felt it was very stilted, very written down to the audience. I don't like that. Next book, Nothing Sung, Nothing Spoken by Nita Tyndall. I read this during March Through History, and I did a vlog talking about what I ended up not liking about this book. Much more in depth there if you want to go check that out. But basically, this is a story set during World War II in Germany, and we're following queer girls and their experiences. And I was excited to read it because that's not a perspective that I've read much set in this time period. And I was looking forward to it, but I didn't feel like it didn't work for me. I felt like the characters were all extremely shallow. There were very few consequences for the things that were happening, and the stakes were high. We're talking, you could be killed for this, and the stakes in the story itself, the characters didn't seem to be aware of that, and we're just sort of, it was not what I wanted it to be. It was not done as well as it could have been. And I don't know if the author didn't do enough research. I don't know if the author just got so hung up with the personalities of the characters that they forgot what they were writing about. But there's just not enough consequence for the things that are happening. And then when the consequence does happen, the character who should have been a lot more invested and involved just pretends well, I guess whatever. And then the book wraps up too fast. And it was very all over the place. The beginning of the book was good. I was invested in these characters. I found their story interesting, but then it just sort of fizzled in the middle. And then you get what should have been a very emotional moment wasn't. And then the story just sort of ends there. You get an epilogue, but it's so it didn't work. It didn't work. And I so wanted it to work. And this is probably the most disappointing book I read this year, I think. Next is one I read as an arc, and that is The Fight for Midnight by Dan Solomon. This is a story centered on reproductive rights. I'm going to start with that. It's a book about the fight for reproductive rights It's set, I think, in Texas. It's all about like something that happened in like Congress in Texas, and like there was a lot of protesting and stuff at the courthouse, or it's all like this is a real event that happened. And the character we're following through this whole story is a teenage boy who is very oblivious to what all of this means. And he's like having this fallout with his best friend, and he has another friend who is one of his best friends, and she's a girl. She is the person we should have been following. This book should not have been centered around the boy. I don't understand the choice there, because I feel like I understand what the author was hoping to do, in that like showing that you can learn new things and be exposed to new ideas and change your mind about things and have empathy about things. But like the way the story is structured, 3/4 of the book are spent focused on how little he cares about this event. He's really only there because this girl he likes is there, and he's trying to like get her to like him, so he's there for her. And I don't know. I didn't appreciate it. I don't think he was the right character for this event. And also the girl he is there to like be with is very pro-life, and she is like adamant that like everyone should be pro-life, and her view is the only view. And so like you do see the pro-choice side through the other girl that is his friend, but like it's just, this book was weird and I didn't love it. I kind of understand what the author's intent was. I don't think we needed this. Next I want to talk about Jezebel. This was by Megan Barnard. And I was really excited to read this. Again, I got the arc. I was really looking forward to it. I was super excited to read a historical fiction set in ancient Israel. This is not a time period, I don't think, that we often get a lot of historical fiction for. So I was super excited about that. Unfortunately, this book does not work for me. It's just the historicalness of it never really felt historical. It doesn't feel like it's set in any particular time period. It's very weird. This occasionally will happen when I'm reading a historical fiction, where it just feels like we're following contemporary characters living in a contemporary lifestyle, but the setting just happens to be like prehistoric times or ancient Israel or like Victorian London, and it's like, but is it? The language used, the way the characters behaved did not feel authentic to the time period, and the way the story is structured was just, it just doesn't work. And I was so disappointed, because this was a perspective that I thought this could have been such a good story. This could have been a really great historical novel. But it wasn't. It felt almost more like it wanted to be a romance novel instead of a story about a powerful woman living in a time period where powerful women were perceived as dangerous. I mean, that's every time period, I guess, but like, you know, it didn't quite work. Like the beginning was really good. Like the parts about her growing up and like why she behaves the way she does, and that the part in when she's a child and growing into her teen years, that was, I thought, the best part of the book. And unfortunately, that's only like the first 2 chapters of the story. So it didn't end up working for me. And I don't know, somebody else needs to take this on. Somebody else needs to write this book more authentic to the time period. I'm all here for messy characters, but it just didn't really feel like it should have for that story, for that, what this is about. Like Jezebel is a character who is just like so maligned throughout history. Like I thought this could have been better. And then I read The Dead and the Gone by Susan Beth Pfeffer. I was so excited to read this. Okay, I loved Life as We Knew It. That's the first book in the series, and that book is spectacular. Like the setting, the characters, all of it was so good. And like I've been wanting to continue the series for ages, so I finally picked up the second book. So excited, and I was so bored. I did not enjoy this. This was a trial to get through. I almost DNF'd it twice, but I was like, no. Surely it will get better, right? The first book is so good. Surely it will get better, but it doesn't get better. The characters in this book are very insufferable, very religious. Like I wasn't anticipating how much this book was going to focus on their Catholic faith. It was almost too much for what the story's about. And it also just felt very unresolved. Like, I understand that there's more books in the series, and I understand that in this world, when things happen like that, that's realistic. People just disappear. But I don't know. I felt like I needed more from this book than what I was given. And I just wish that the religion could have been toned down a little bit. Like, it was overwhelmingly Catholic. And I don't know that it needed to be. I mean, I don't know. But the characters themselves were just really hard to live with for 300 pages. You know? And then the last book I want to talk about is probably another one that I would say is a really, really disappointing read. And that is The Bone Weaver's Orchard by Sarah Reed. This is a coming-of-age book. It was recommended by Sadie Hartman in 101 Horror Books to Read Before You're Murdered. And like, coming-of-age horror is one of my favorite things. I've talked about that a lot. But this one was just very okay. This almost felt like it was written for children, which, again, not a problem. I read a lot of middle grade, and I enjoy middle grade. But this wasn't billed as middle grade horror. This was written for adults, I think, and it didn't feel like it. The main character that we're following, Charlie, is kind of a boring character to follow. I didn't understand why he needed to be the protagonist of this book. The setting was probably the only thing that worked for me, in that it's very gothic. The atmosphere was great. The rest of it was not. I didn't enjoy any of the characters enough to follow them for the whole book. I did not think the way the story resolves was done in an interesting way. It all felt almost too simple. And like this was written for children, except that it wasn't. And I don't know. The vibes were all kinds of weird. I don't know how I feel about it. I still want to read more by this author. I have another of her books that I got in Nightworms. I'm still interested in reading that because her writing was fine. I just don't know what was supposed to be happening here. It didn't work for me. So those are my most disappointing reads of 2023. And, you know, it is what it is. Sometimes you read a dud. I oftentimes will just DNF. None of these were 1 star, by the way. I think the lowest rated book I had was The Boy Who Followed His Father into Auschwitz, just because that topic, the fact that it was nonfiction, it should have been done better. So that I gave a 2 star, but and I think it was a 2.5 because I was trying to be generous, but honestly, I shouldn't have. It should be a 2. But I DNF things if I'm really not feeling it. And I kind of wish I had DNF'd a few of these, but none of them are rated below a 2.5, so it is what it is. What was your most disappointing book that you picked up this year? I would love to hear about it. So that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye.